Hello and welcome to The Society with Fatma Shaheen at PTB World. Today on our show, we'll be talking about not one, rather several positive social developments that are happening in the Pakistani society as we speak. In this regard, we'll be talking about the different initiatives that the government has taken more so to improve the quality and of course the standard of education in the country. In this regard, we'll also be talking about how the government is working to address Pakistan's silent problem of course mental health issues, and last but not the least, we'll also be talking about how the government is working to of course uplift and empower the vulnerable segments of the Pakistani society. We'll also be talking about the role of the society at large, both individually as responsible citizens of the country, and of course collectively when we talk about the society as a whole when it comes to bringing about positive social change. Why is it so important that each of us in our own respective capacities not only works to empower those who actually need our help, who actually need our support, but at the same time, they work very closely in, of course, bringing about purpose and resilience to those who need the same. This and much more to follow on today's show, both from the viewpoint of course, the government and, of course, the society at large, and that too with an extremely pertinent, rather very distinguished panel. Let me introduce you to my today's panel. My first panelist for the show today is Ms. Bushra Butt, who is an MPA of PMLN. She's also an educationist alongside being a member of the Standing Committee for Higher Education, and she's a social worker too. Assalamu alaikum, madam, and welcome to the show.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. And via Zoom, we'll be joined by Salman Sufi Saab, who's the head of Prime Minister's Strategic Reforms. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Sir, I would like to start the show with you. We understand the fact that, that the government in the first has, of course, launched this official helpline for the trans community of the country, the aim of which is, of course, to actually address, various issues that they do face. So for the clarification of the audience, can you please tell us that, what all does this helpline aim to do? And when we talk about, of course, ensuring that, transgenders get timely redressal, what is the system via which this helpline works?
As you rightly mentioned, that Pakistan, this is the first hotline that Pakistan government officially have launched. There's many NGOs and public sector organizations who have been doing excellent work for the rights and, anti-harassment of our transgender citizens. But this is the first time on the direction of Prime Minister that something officially is being done. So the helpline was launched a week and a half ago. And this helpline basically connects all Pakistan and all Pakistan's citizens who are transgenders to this main server, which is located in the Ministry of Human Rights. And the Ministry of Human Rights then takes their complaints, which is regarding harassment, which is regarding discrimination, or any other issue which is, against the law that they're facing. So once they get that, issue logged, then they connect the anti-harassment, or any violence or complaints of those sorts to AIG gender crimes, which have been appointed in all 4 provinces. It's a post called Additional Inspector General of Police, and it's solely focused on gender. So once we receive a complaint, let's say from Peshawar, or let's say from Lahore, or let's say from Quetta, so the relevant IG office is being notified from the Ministry of Human Rights, and a dashboard is located in the Prime Minister office as well to keep track of the complaints that are, being lodged and then how they're being resolved. So far we have received around like 11 or 12 complaints, and majority of them have been resolved. But most importantly, the issue is that this has given them a platform which was non-existent before. So now, instead of taking, their complaint to social media or trying to look for other opportunities, now they have a centralized helpline dedicated for them, which is, I think, in itself a big step for human rights in Pakistan.
Right, sir, your point is noted, on which I'll come to you, madam. I think we understand the fact that, of course, this is a very welcome move, considering, of course, that the trans community of Pakistan is, neglected, so to speak. But moving on, I understand the fact that, you yourself have been working on some very important laws, the purpose of which is, of course, to, ensure women empowerment in letter and spirit. But when we talk about, the laws in the country, when we talk about the constitution, there's no denying to the fact that, they do talk about, of course, promoting women rights. They talk about giving women various protections and safeguards, so to speak. But when we talk about, implementing the same laws, what social barriers, in your opinion, exist because of which we can't practically implement the same?
Fatma, being a legislator for good 9 years, one thing is confirmed that there's a lot of legislation that has happened. The problem comes in implementation, like you've mentioned rightly so. It's the society. We need to change the way people think. Even if you relate it with the transgender community, this general acceptance. We live in a patriarchal society. Women are facing we somehow, even though we make up 50% of the population, somehow we
Right.
come in the minorities ambit. Somehow, I don't understand why women, when it comes to their rights, we are considered under the minorities ambit, and I can't justify it. But having said that, I feel general society needs to accept this. We need to step out of this patriarchal mindset that we have. We
Right.
need to raise the generation in such a way that women shouldn't be fighting for these rights.
Right. It should be something which should be like kind of understood. I think what you mean to say then is that of course it should be a human right for all. It should not specifically
Fatima,
be a women right per
you're
se.
absolutely right, but we need to understand one thing. Now where Pakistan, or for that matter, even the world stands, if we do not facilitate and do not give the rights to the women, and they will never become part of the workforce.
Right.
And economically, financially, it's become mandatory for not just the man to earn. You can't run a house on just one person earning.
Right.
So for that, even now we have to realize that they have to come and become part of the workplace and workforce. And for that, you have to make situation very easy for women.
Of course, you have to make it easier for them to access the system per se.
Exactly.
But moving on, madam, I think you very rightly put it out. But when we talk about, ensuring that we actually overcome these societal barriers, those social cultural norms which actually hinder in the implementation of all the issues that you've actually pointed out, what role can men play in this regard? It's also very important to talk about, the need to, of course, sensitize men, the need to sensitize young boys when it comes to ensuring that, women do get the rights that they have been, promised as per laws and, of course, as per the constitution of the country.
Fatma, you're absolutely right, but sadly, this cannot happen overnight. Just because there's some kind of legislation that has happened will not make them change the mindset of the society. So, it has to become part of the curriculum. So the children, so the boys are trained to think in a certain manner.
Right.
And these gender stereotypical viewpoints that are instilled in our curriculum, in our society, day one, when a mother, I'm a mother of a son, if I do not correct him when he starts learning these from the society, then I'm raising a boy who will turn out to be exactly what I'm scared of.
Right, and he will
face.
in turn pass on the same very
Exactly.
values.
So it cannot happen just because the legislation happened.
Of course.
It's
But,
a mindset.
That's very rightly put. But then, if you look at it from a very holistic kind of a viewpoint, Bushra, a lot of times we see laws also come in place because they are there to change societal attitudes. So I get, what you're saying, but it's something which applies both ways that way.
If you want like drastic changes, if you want changes, if you need to change the society as a whole, then yes, you need to work from the day one you give birth to a son, you need to raise him in a certain manner. Other than that, yes, legislation, all these punishments, yes, they put like, we need such kind of check and balance.
Right.
Yes, because if these check and balances are there and women are aware of their rights, yes, both of them will work hand in hand.
Right.
So,
So I
yes.
think it goes back to the basics that, we need to sensitize men if we want to, of course, make women empowerment a reality. On which, sir, I'll come to you. We also understand the fact that, that the government has, basically launched this special course on animal welfare. The purpose, of course, of which is to actually, inculcate compassionate and, of course, a more humane approach when it comes to teaching our students so as to treat animals per se. But whereas, of course, on paper, this does look like a very welcome move. Practically, how do you see it being implemented?
As you rightly said, in Pakistan, unfortunately, animal rights are nowhere to be seen. There's like a lot of abuse of stray animals. There's a lot of abuse of pet animals. There's no regulation as in such, in which if you are keeping pet animals, like, you have to take care of them. So you're not just like keeping them as toys. So fortunately, we were able to start some movement on that, and we banned live testing of animals in Islamabad. We are working on various other initiatives, and this is one of them. So as far as this implementation is concerned, I think it's going to go a long way because once you introduce these chapters into the curriculum, so this gives our children the idea that how animal rights are not only supreme for humanity, but they're also part of your religion, which is sadly neglected. So it will tell them about how to take care of your pets, how to take care of stray animals, how not to throw stones at animals if you see them on the street, especially how we abuse donkeys on this when we use them for labor, how we throw stones at dogs when we see them, because we always have been told that dogs are somehow dangerous. So all of this will be tackled, and so when these children will grow up, my hope is that this generation will be much better in animal rights and taking care of animals than we were, because we certainly have failed animals when it comes to our generation.
Right, so your point is noted, on which I'll come to you, madam. I think this is a very, different kind of an initiative, one of its own kind, something which we didn't see before. But of course, it is something very good, very welcoming at the end of the day. We've also seen that, that the government did introduce a few years ago this chapter on gender-based violence in the curriculum. When we look at the education system overall, I understand that you've been a senior educationist yourself. What issues you feel are there which we need to very categorically address if we want to, overall improve the quality and of course the standard of education too?
Fatima, first of all, Pakistani curriculum or the way of teaching methodology, it's all about rote learning. We need analytical thinkers.
Right.
We need the children to think in a certain way, and to probe that we need a good curriculum. And for that, we need teachers who are trained accordingly.
Right.
So even though when during 2013 tenure, we worked a lot with Shabazz Saab, because we realized that even bringing in new types of teaching methodologies will not work unless or until our teachers are trained to teach in a certain way. Now, sadly, it's just so engraved in our education system, this rote learning, that the children become, they don't have those new brain cells developing.
I think the focus should be on the skills that they learn, basically. The ability to question things, to critically question issues, basically.
Critically question issues and take responsibility as well.
Right. And I think one more thing, very rightly pointed by yourself, I think that ability to also accept dissent. This is something that we need to inculcate in children, and I think you would be in a very good position to tell us about that, because you've had that basically benefit of teaching both university students as well as school students.
You see, what we are lacking, and I'm not hopeless at all at the situation. I'm very hopeful. Our youth is very, very motivated, and given the right kind of material, right kind of content, they perform wonderfully. It's just that the content is not being provided. If you look at diversity, if you look at tolerance, if you look at these issues, need to be tackled. They need to be discussed. Right. And the youth needs to have a very interactive communication, interactive relationship with their teachers.
Right. I think here you've actually pinpointed something on which I would want your real life narrative, because I know that you've been teaching for quite some time now, 7-8 years at a very renowned university, so to speak. But when we talk about teachers' development, when I look at this issue, at least from an objective bystander viewpoint, I feel that, perhaps we need to do more when it comes to taking teacher development serious.
Definitely, Fatima. Anywhere in the world, you cannot become a teacher until or unless you're certified.
Right.
Over here, sadly, so investing in this profession, somehow, it's more of a to fill the gap between your life kind of a profession, teaching. Although you're molding the the
life of somebody,
life of the future of the future generation.
Right.
And yes, the teachers need to invest, and the schools need to invest in their teachers as well, because now we're tackling with a lot of learning disabilities as well. There's dyslexia, there's ADHD, and if you do not understand how to deal and tackle with those students, other than that, even if you look at university level, Fatima, we've just faced a global pandemic. The children have missed out on so much. There's so much aggression, there's so much frustration.
Right.
If you look at them, you need proper guidance, and a teacher who's not skilled
would
A
not be able
teacher,
to do
exactly. A
Right.
teacher needs to perform their duty and the duty of a life coach.
That's very rightly put by yourself. But then I think going back to the basics, I think you've mentioned the pandemic here. I think an issue which is very relevant then is, of course, to modernize our teaching techniques, because this whole debate of the digital divide and, how teaching as a profession has completely changed in light of the technological advancements that not only Pakistan, rather the whole world saw. So I think then the stress and the focus of the issues that completely changes. So in light of the fact that, of course, we have gone through a global pandemic, in light of the fact that, Pakistan has also witnessed, these catastrophic floods, how do you feel can we then make education a priority?
Education a priority, you see, you have to understand that it's not just education theoretically. You need to inculcate these values within these children to take responsibilities. And Fatima, I swear, I'm telling you, I've seen that this nation has this enthusiasm. Whenever there's some kind of crisis, everybody just, even though we would have so many flaws,
we all come together for the sake of humanity,
and
to
I
help
always
each other
feel
out,
that given the right leadership, the right kind of guidance, these people, this youth can perform wonderfully.
Right.
It's just that they're missing out on all that guidance and the right direction.
Right.
So I have a lot of hope when it comes to youth. Yes, but the kind of content that is being provided to them is not sufficient enough.
And that is something that we need to work on. And I think in this regard, like you, I think very rightly so mentioned, the gap between the teachers and the students, that per se, that also needs to be addressed, because I think teachers also need to realize that, of course, they're teaching a younger generation, and students should be mindful of the fact that this is coming from somebody who, of course, doesn't belong to the same generation.
It's definitely, Fatma, it's a balance that's not easy to maintain. Where you can interact with the students, yet have the same kind of respect expected, and the students giving that kind of respect back to the teachers as well. Because it's not our era. Even now, if I come across one of my teachers, I just there's so much respect. But right now, the kind of relationship the teachers are having with the students is definitely not an easy one to manage.
Right, madam, your point is noted, on which I'll come to you, sir. I think in this regard, it's also very important to talk about this very pressing social issue, which is of course, of mental health. In this regard, it's very important to mention the fact that, the government by the name of Hamraz has actually introduced this mental health service. So for the clarification of the audience, could you tell us that, how practically does this aim to work, and how effective will it actually be at the end of the day when it comes to, of course, doing away with the stigma that does surround the taboo topic of mental health in our society?
Yes, it's a very, very challenging initiative that Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif asked us to take care of, because, mental health problems have been rising in Pakistan. We all, I have learned during my course in my life that we all face some kind of mental health issues, but because of lack of awareness, we do not recognize them. And then we and people around us and, at our work, in our relationships, at our families, they all get affected by it, but we don't know how to diagnose it because nobody talks about it. So that is why this initiative is being launched. It's being worked on as we speak. The app development is almost done. Now we're connecting, and we are very closely working with Ministry of Health in federal government with Abdul Qadir Patel Saab. He was very kind to give his resources for this app. So how it will work is this app will be available to all the citizens, and when you log into the app, it will simply ask you a question that, are you feeling okay or are you not feeling okay? So if you are not feeling okay, then the choices that you will have will be very different. So it will connect you with someone who can speak to you if you are, God forbid, thinking about suicide, or you're feeling about hurting yourself or something like that. But if you are feeling okay and you want some information, or you want to be connected to a psychologist, so then you will be connected to someone who will take your initial information and guide you accordingly. And if you need some serious, what you call a treatment, then you will be connected to a panel of psychologists, which will then take you on as a patient. So this it's a work in progress, and as you said, that it's a very huge scope, and we certainly do not expect an immediate change, but we certainly do expect that this will actually put a spotlight on an issue which has been neglected for a long time.
And I think in this regard, if not anything, it will give people that, comfort that help is available in the event that they do want to reach out. Coming to you, I think mental health per se is, of course, Pakistan's silent problem. We've seen that, the suicide rate, more so in the younger generation, that has gone up. We've seen that, after the pandemic. But as a society, why do you still feel that, despite there being a rampant increase in, this issue, in the issue of mental health, we still, attach so much stigma to it? Because at the end of the day, this is a social issue, and at the end of the day, if we want to, of course, look towards solutions, then the solutions, accordingly must stem from the society as well.
Fatma, you're absolutely right. You see, we as a society, we attach stigmas and taboos to certain issues. It clearly says mental health.
Right.
Just like your heart, just like your other organs, it's just about that health. It's an organ and it needs help.
Of course.
That's it. If you clarify it, I always say that, when you talk about issues, then the awareness kicks in, and the fact that, okay, it's okay to talk about it kicks in.
Right.
That state of mind kicks in.
And it's okay not to be okay at the end of the day.
Yes.
I don't know why we, really stigmatize it.
If my heart is not working properly, I'm okay to talk about it. Yes, the arteries are blocked and this and that. Why can't I say that my, the brain, it has all these, hormones that's, and it's okay. People need awareness.
Right.
That's where, and I always say talk about it.
I think in this regard, we must also give due credit to a lot of people who have belonged to the media industry. They've been very vocal about, not only in Pakistan, in fact, in different industries as well. They've been very vocal about the issues that they've faced. But at some level or the other, we've also seen that they've been judged. So I think it's then a two-pronged approach. One is to talk about it. Two is, of course, to do away with any kind of, qualms that you may have, that you will be judged on it. So when we talk about, addressing this from a more holistic societal angle, what changes do we need to make in our societal attitude so as to accept people who actually talk about it? Because a lot of times people don't talk about it, Bushra, because they feel that they, one way or the other will be judged if they do so.
Fatma, the fact that, anything and everything that you do will never reap like 100% rewards. Yes, there are chances of you being judged, but then you'd be helping out, somewhere somebody would be sitting and saying, okay, I'm not the only one going through this, because a lot of people who are going through all these mental health issues, they feel isolated. They feel that I'm the only one going through it.
Right.
And when you listen to somebody else's story, you do tend to relate. And it's not for the, let's say if 20% of the people are going through these mental issues, the 60% might not agree with you, but then 20% are relating with you, right?
Right.
So nothing ever reaps like 100% positive results.
Right.
But yes, how to go about it, that is where the experts need to come in. Not for me, for you to decide. It's for somebody who has those technical expertise to come in. That's why we need those life coaches. And yes, Fatma, the trends are changing.
Right.
People are more open to therapy. People are more open to, and that's why they've come up with the softer term as well, life coach.
Life coach, that's very right. And I think in this regard, we must also, of course, involve different facets of the society, because I do feel it's very unfair putting all the responsibility on the state per se, because at the end of the day, it's a social issue. And in this regard, I think you would agree with me on this, that the, educational institutions and their role, that becomes very important, because we do see in the Western jurisdictions, in quite a few states in America, that, if children, they do suffer from different kind of mental health disorders, they are
stress,
very open.
They can't manage the stress.
Right. They are very conveniently referred to, counselors so as to treat them. So why can we not have, similar practices here in the country?
No, we must. In fact, we started that as well, because there were a lot of cases that were coming up. You have to understand one thing, that there is a lot of drug abuse that's happening in schools and university level. Call it because peer pressure, call it because of the, after the global pandemic, life will never be the same again.
Right.
These are teenagers who are dealing with hormonal changes. Then they had to face lockdown, which was not easy. Then the families had to go through financial crunches. They had to take years off because they couldn't go to universities, or they were enrolled in universities and sitting at home, and a lot of screen time as well. So a lot
so
has
it has
happened.
added, I think, to the problem at
It
the
has
end of the day,
added,
basically, which
so
is why schools need to be more proactive now.
Exactly. If you want to apply to a university, if you can have student counselors there, then why can't you have life coaches? And it should be made mandatory. You know, every solution to the problems the state cannot provide.
Of course, and I think it's a very unfair
And
kind
even
of a burden
these
to
are
put on
people
it as
from
well.
private schools,
Right.
which they don't even come under the ambit of the government. So we just need to appeal to them in a certain way that this is very important, and these kids need. And you know, the parents sometimes they, most of the time, students, the children are not able to connect with the parents on that level.
Right, madam, your point is noted. On which, sir, I'll come to you. I think in this regard, it's also very important to talk about, you know, these various initiatives which have been taken, which actually allow women to reclaim their public space. And in this regard, of course, it's very important to mention this very important initiative of Women on Wheels. So tell us more about this initiative, and also tell us that, you know, how particularly does it just not, you know, aim to actually ensure that women do actually get access to public spaces, but at the same time, they are equally able to fight off street harassment.
Yes, that is a very serious issue. But unfortunately, we started doing Women on Wheels when Prime Minister was Chief Minister back in Punjab, and he started it in 2016. So we have trained like thousands of women, and you know, there have been you know, sporadic incidents, but not something, God forbid, knock on wood, you know, something very grave or serious. Because when we train them, we also give them anti-harassment and road safety training. And then, you know, we also make the local police cognizant of the fact that now women are being trained, so you have to be more vigilant. But having said that, I mean, like we all know, you know, the state of our society, and harassment is a pressing issue that we most certainly face. But I believe that the more women, when they come out on road, and the more they feel confident, and the more who get training, so the harassment issue will get resolved with the help of government, with the help of law enforcement in time, because then people will know that this is not a one-time phenomena. The women have reclaimed their public space, and they have the right to the road as much as anyone else. So then this you know, this issue will you know, be way more benign than it is right now.
Right, sir, your point is noted, on which I'll come to you, madam. I think he's raised some very valid points that, you know, why is it so important to ensure a woman's access to the public spaces, and how, of course, you know, initiatives like Women on Wheels actually do that. But you yourself have been involved in some very important initiatives, more so, you know, when it comes to, of course, the launch of the metro bus. So tell us more about that, and also, you know, about the very pressing need to actually educate women to fight off street harassment, because, you know, all these issues, they go side by side.
Fatma, the thing is that we, Shabazz Saab, in fact, realized that women have to be actively involved and become part of the workforce, and they need to be actively involved in the. You need to facilitate the process. It's very easy to have that extra quota for women who should leave their house and just go and work. The whole process needs to be facilitated. How will they commute? What will they do? So initially, now, though, after I remember seeing a woman on a scooty would be like, I would turn twice as well. You see, but now people are very comfortable with it. I see a lot of women, and it feels very. It feels like a lot of women are there who actually using the scooties as well, who are using the metro buses as well. And I've personally traveled in metro bus to see, and they travel in a very dignified manner. You see a lot of men, and we, like coming back again, we live in a patriarchal society. If the parents or the husbands feel that the women cannot travel in a decent manner, or there are no opportunities like that, they will not let the women leave.
Right.
So when you give these kind of opportunities, when you facilitate the whole process, in fact, we also came up with the daycares, because we wanted the women with children to actually leave their household, go to their workplace, and be able to be with their children as well.
But do you still feel, Bushra, that, you know, this concept of daycare, of course, it is a much needed initiative at the end of the day, because, you know, this is something which is very natural, and this is something that we have, you know, in the other parts of the world as well. But do you feel that, you know, that this concept of daycare, it has gotten that acceptability in our Pakistani society? Because we still do come across people, you know, who actually judge women, working mothers, who leave their children out there thinking that, you know, maybe she's not a good mother, mother. She prefers her career, she prefers her work over, her child.
Fatma, these kind of judgmental people will always be there. But now people have realized that one person earning cannot run a house.
Right.
It's become the need, even if they like it or not, the woman has to work. She has to leave her house or, to make ends meet.
Right.
So it has become the need. And yes, every new concept or every new step that you take initially will not be accepted by the society.
Right. But I think you need to actually hold your ground strong.
Exactly.
And you need to be
women
steadfast.
entering politics, like a lot of people ask me, you left LUMS and came to politics and entered politics, how was that? Initially people will talk about it, but then there will be that kind of acceptance.
Right. But I think initiatives like these at the end of the day, be it in terms of course, Women on Wheels or various other, initiatives that we've talked about related to, of course, improving the curriculum, making children more, approach, basically by that virtue, have a more humane approach towards animals, or for that matter, adopting that mental health service helpline at the end of the day. I think they are the right steps in the right direction. Because I think at least they are putting forward, something positive. They are putting forward something which is at the end of the day beneficial for the society.
Yes, Fatima, you have to understand one thing. There is no one solution to the problem.
Right.
These are all the factors that you need to tackle, and then inshallah, looking forward, the next generation will be more progressive, more humane, more tolerant, and these are all these aspects that will together work for the benefit of this society.
Right, madam, your point is noted. I think it's very important that, at least we've made some headway when it comes to, of course, socially empowering people. In this regard, of course, these different initiatives that we have mentioned, let's hope that they will actually form a premise for the same. On which note, I'll come to you, sir, and to wrap up today's conversation, my last question to you would be, of course, regarding the young people in the society today, whereas, of course, we understand the fact that, a large population of Pakistan, of course, comprises of youth, and it is also expected that the youth bulge is, of course, expected to rise till year 2050. Do you feel, as somebody who has very diligently worked for rights of different quarters in the Pakistani society, that, have we not been able to successfully unleash the potential of a young Pakistan?
I don't think we have been successful at all. I think like a personal level, like I have seen a lot of decay. The level of education and the kind of education, we have literally decided that education means your 3.9 GPA or getting into an internship into like into a multinational corporation. But we are seriously lacking on ethics. We are seriously lacking on educating about civil rights. We are seriously lacking about educating our young youth bulge, as you call it, about what kind of society we're looking at. Like, just look at social media, like the political polarization. Like, people are actually calling out people, women with nasty names openly, and they are not afraid, and they are young people. So that tells you that I don't care if you have an MBA or MBBS, if your mental level at the education level has resorted you to this point, that means we have collectively failed to cater to the youth bulge. And unfortunately, the youth is also not interested in people like Malala, or people like Edhi. So I think there's some need for some serious introspection that we need to do when it comes to our youth.
Right, sir, your point is noted. So in continuation then to what you said, how then do you feel can the society contribute when it comes to ensuring youth development?
I think it has to start from our own homes. It's a start with media, by showing, our children what needs to be taught, bringing them back from this abyss that we are heading to. And then, any level of education in universities or college will matter. Otherwise, I think it will be useless.
Right, sir, your point is noted, on which I'll come to you, madam. And before we conclude today's show, I think it's also very important to talk about, the issues that we need to address both individually as well as collectively as a society when it comes to bringing about positive social change. So what would your views be in this regard?
Yes, Salman has rightly pointed out the harsh realities. But the sort of person I am, obviously, I always like to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I have a lot of faith and I have a lot of hope when it comes to our youth. It's just that, like I always say, that they've been through a lot. And if they've given the right kind of guidance, this polarization that has happened, this hate speech, this intolerant stance that they've taken, things can get better.
Right.
And yes, what you've pointed out, these are all factors that would work towards it. And yes, a major factor is your household.
Right.
Parents need to step up. They have to leave their comfort zone. They have to come at par with the new generation, and they have to match somehow with how they think, what they need. And yes, these taboos attached to mental health, therapy, all of that needs to go away.
Right, basically. And for that, I think they need to be educated as well. They need to be sensitized.
Everybody. And then media needs to have these positive campaigns and not highlight only the bad that is happening.
Of course, just glorifying violence.
Yes. The good that needs to be highlighted so that people are motivated, youth is motivated to do good, to be highlighted.
Of course.
So it's a lot. Then the proper kind of legislation and the facilitation, all of this will work together, and then inshallah will work in the right direction.
Right, madam, your point is noted, on which note I would like to conclude today's show. Thank you so much, Ms. Bushra, and thank you so much, Salman Saab, for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, to conclude today's show, we generally spoke about the various social developments as they are happening in the Pakistani society. We also spoke about the various government initiatives that have been taken in this regard. No matter from where, social reform does emanate, what is important is to understand the fact that the aim of any social reform, or for that matter, the aim of any positive social change, should always be, of course, to uplift and by that virtue also empower the most weakest and, of course, the most vulnerable segments of that very society. On that note, signing off for today. Until next time, take care and Allah Hafiz.